You are listening to the opening phrases of Camille Saint-Saëns's Danse Macabre, or the Dance of Death. Based upon a late medieval moral allegory on the universal nature of mortality, this tone poem paints a picture of death summoning spirits to remind humanity just how frail we truly are. The Danse Macabre begins with the violinist violently sawing out an A and E flat, which form the interval of a tritone, an interval that we know today by its Latin moniker, Diabolos in Musica, or the devil in music. This is the same interval that opens Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix, a similar raw and aggressive invocation to the spirits. The tritone, also known as the diminished fifth or the augmented fourth, is named as such because it spans 3 whole tone intervals, or tritone. It neatly divides the octave into 2 equal parts, but it's an unstable sound. The tritone is an important engine of the cycle of tension and release, fundamental to our system of tonal harmony. Because of how dissonant it is, it sets up expectations of resolution. But what if that resolution never came? The phrase Diabolos in Musica seems to harken back to the Middle Ages, before the development of our system of tonal harmony. Because of how dissonant and unresolved the tritone was, church officials were afraid that if monks were to sing it, the devil himself would appear. It was explicitly banned, and anyone who dared to sing it was sentenced. Wait a second. Play that background music again. That's a tritone that those monks are singing. How can that be?
I mean, are you sure that they're singing that right? Because I've always heard that the tritone was banned in the Middle Ages because it was the devil in music. Just listen to Alex Webster of Cannibal Corpse explain it.
Tritone, that's the devil's note. Like in the old days, you weren't allowed to use that note.
The tritone was not banned in the Middle Ages. There simply is no evidence to suggest that it ever was. This is true despite the fact that that bit of misinformation is repeated over and over on the internet.
2 notes that was banned by the Catholic Church.
Tritone was banned by the Catholic Church.
And according to scholars, it was at one point outlawed.
This specific interval was banned.
Well, the devil's interval, and was banned in some cases.
We do, however, have plenty of evidence to show that the tritone was used, albeit fairly rarely. The music that we were just listening to was written by the great medieval composer Tritone, and it contains several tritones. 14th century music theorists thought the tritone was difficult to sing and dissonant, but could be used effectively in certain contexts. In his Speculum Musicae, Jacobus of Liege wrote, "It's no wonder that the tritone's use is rare in practice, but nevertheless its theory is subtle and beautiful." The earliest source that we have of the phrase Diabolos in Musica comes 400 years after medieval practice. It's found in the 18th century counterpoint textbook known as the Gradus ad Parnassum by Johann Fuchs. The actual phrase was a little bit more technical and went like this: Mi contra fa est diabolos in musica. This means that mi, the 3rd note of the scale, against fa, the 4th note of the scale, is the devil in music. This isn't even the right interval. E against F form a minor second, not a tritone. The full Latin phrase makes a little bit more sense in the context of something called hexachords, or the first 6 notes of the major scale. In medieval music, vocal parts were split up into 3 separate hexachords. The natural hexachord was built on C, the soft hexachord was built on F, and the hard hexachord was built on G. So mi from the natural hexachord can create a tritone with fa from the soft hexachord, and fa from the natural hexachord can create a tritone with mi from the hard hexachord. Mi from the hard hexachord was especially crunchy against fa from the soft hexachord. All of these were just kind of in general hard to sing in tune, so were avoided if at all possible. Mi contra fa est diabolos in musica is an aphorism similar to I before E except after C. It is a practical, technical rule and not a warning against the devil.
Well, if it wasn't banned in the Middle Ages because it sounded evil, then why does it sound so evil to me?
Well, it's because of a fascinating thing that linguists call semantic shift. In language, the meanings of words can change over time, often with more and more negative connotation. Demagogue used to simply mean popular leader. Awful simply meant inspiring awe. A similar thing happened with the tritone. 19th century Romantic composers studied the Gradus ad Parnassum and took the phrase Diabolos in Musica quite literally. They would then go on to create very sinister music based upon the tritone, such as the opening to the Dante Sonata by Liszt, depicting Dante's descent into hell. The semantic shift to an evil tritone intensified a century later when metal bands started experimenting with tritone-laden riffs in songs like Metallica's Enter Sandman, Slayer's aptly named album Diabolos in Musica, and my personal favorite, the song Black Sabbath on the album Black Sabbath by the band Black Sabbath. Even if it didn't mean it at all in the Middle Ages, the tritone has been socially codified to mean evil over the past 2 centuries.
But is there anything like inherently evil about the tritone that would make us feel that way? Like scientifically or something?
Well, I mean, it's dissonant and unstable. It's used in police sirens because of its grating quality, but I'm not really quite sure if it's evil. I mean, in our equal-tempered system of tuning, the tritone's pitch relationship back to the root is the square root of 2 to 1, which I guess kind of feels evil, right? It's certainly unstable compared to the sound of a just intonated perfect fifth, which has the ratio of 3 to 2. In general, the human ear prefers the sound of simpler ratios to more complex ones. A ratio like the square root of 2 to 1 will sound dissonant because our ears can't reconcile those two frequencies very easily. We generally will then assign that dissonance a cultural connotation later, like say the dissonance of a tritone being the devil in music. But there are plenty of more contexts for the tritone beyond this. It can be yearning and hopeful, like the first melodic interval to the song Maria from West Side Story. Or it can be mischievous and playful, like in the theme to The Simpsons. The tritone can also be, well, boring. French absurdist composer Eric Satie created a piece known as Vexations, which consisted of unresolved tritones, and a full performance traditionally takes over 24 hours to complete. It certainly does evoke boredom in music, something that Satie often sought to achieve. The tritone can also be affirming and soulful. Blues exploits the subtle tension of the unresolved tritone as an intrinsic sound of the music. Blues chord progressions are built on dominant 7th chords, which contain a tritone between the 3rd degree and the lowered 7th degree, which never gets resolved in the same way that it does in classical tonal harmony. The cultural folklore of the blues really can't get away from devil myths, though, like the classic story of Robert Johnson meeting the devil at the crossroads to sell his soul in exchange for the ability to play guitar. This is similar to the story of 18th century composer and violinist Giuseppe Tartini, who wrote a piece of music known as the Devil's Trill Sonata after he had a dream where he sold his soul to the devil. One night in the year 1713, I dreamed I had made a pact with the devil for my soul. I felt enraptured, transported, enchanted. My breath failed me, and I awoke. I immediately grasped my violin in order to retain, in part at least, the impression of my dream. In vain. Tartini, the devil, and the blues are even more closely related to this because of how Tartini liked to tune his tritones. In his writings, he advocated the use of something called the lesser septimal tritone, a tuning of the tritone based upon a simpler ratio of 7 to 5. Since the equal-tempered tritone is built upon the irrational ratio of the square root of 2 to 1, it sounds dissonant, but tuning it a little bit lower to the ratio of 7 to 5 makes it sound a little bit less rough. You can think of this ratio of 7 to 5 as the distance between the 7th harmonic of the harmonic series to the 5th harmonic of the harmonic series, or roughly equivalent to the distance between the major 3rd and flat 7 of the dominant 7th chords used in blues harmony. Blues singers will often use this 7 to 5 lesser septimal tritone as a means of altering the scale in a classic alteration known as the blue note. So what we've learned is that depending on context, a tritone can assume a variety of meanings beyond just devilishness. In his book, The Craft of Musical Composition, the composer and theorist Paul Hindemith wrote, "The octave is the proudest, the noblest of intervals, and does not mingle with the others. The tritone is the most distant relative, the eccentric, barred from close association with the interval pairs, like Loki among the gods of Valhalla, and similarly indispensable." In his book, 20th Century Harmony, composer Vincent Persichetti put it a lot more succinctly. It sounds primarily neutral in chromatic passages and restless in diatonic passages. The tritone is restless. I kind of like this characterization because it encompasses all of the different moods that we've associated with the tritone in this video. The cultural trope of the tritone being the devil in music is a tempting one for a young musician to adopt, but there is so much more cultural and musical history to this interval and so much more left to be explored. What will you do with the tritone? Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. My name is Adam Neely. I have a new video coming out every Monday, so please comment, like, and subscribe. And if you really enjoy what I do here on this channel, please consider joining my Patreon, because it's the patrons over at my Patreon that allow me to do this week after week, so thank you very much. And until next time,
peace.